Hello, and welcome to another Aspen Roots podcast episode. If you love spiritual stories, you found the right podcast for you. We're your hosts, Brandon and Sophia, and today we're going to be talking about Brandon.
And my story, it's called I Released a DERM from My Own Body.
Mm-hmm.
So, this is a big topic, and we're going to have to get a number of things out in the intro here. So, bear with us as we conversate around the intro, build the platform in which I feel my story needs to stand on. And so, with that said, let's start with the word DERM. What does DERM mean, Sophia?
DERM means negative entity, demon, negative energy, negativity, and any of those words. We're going to be using those words probably interchangeably during this episode as well. So,
Yeah, sometimes I like to say simply darkness, but
yeah, or
that's
darkness.
the topic here at play. And if you're thinking about hitting skip or pause or, closing out of this episode, hang on, time out. Let me build a case for why you shouldn't do that. This is not, the story itself is not a scary story. It's actually a very liberating story. And our intention here is to awaken and empower you to things that are already going on in your life, whether you want to admit it or not. And we have a number of things, including the story itself, to back this all up. So let's work through this here in the intro. Okay. Let's start with a metaphor. I love to use metaphors with
Mm-hmm.
spirituality. And the metaphor I'm going to use is germs or parasites,
Pathogens.
pathogens,
Yeah.
bacteria, all that stuff. So, back in the day in a hospital, the doctors, nurses, the workers, they didn't wash their hands after dealing with patients. And one doctor found that if he started washing hands after dealing with patients, his staff was getting a lot less sick.
And the patient, I mean, a lot of patients died from infection in those days.
Yeah, so let's pretend that these germs are like derms or demons. They're
Mm-hmm.
around. You can't
Yeah.
see them, and not everybody knows that or believes it or wants to. But knowing about it is empowering because once you learn that
Right.
there's germs and bacteria and pathogens, then you start washing your hands. You start washing your food. You start cooking your food. You do the things that you need to do to protect yourself, and life is better as a result. And life goes on, you're fine. It's the same with demons. Life was better if you at least are open to the possibility. Like, there's a lot of people back in the day that are like, what? Washing your hands? Like, looking at my hands, my hands are
Mm-hmm.
clean. I don't see anything on my hands. Like you can easily shut down the idea of demons. And I certainly did. And I'll circle back to that. It's one of the reasons I feel my story is profound to me because this wasn't really something, demons were not something that I really ever focused on. I was aware of
Yeah,
negative
me
energy,
either.
but I thought demons was like for the movies or for what people want to
Mm-hmm.
believe in church and stuff like that. But it's there's been this presence of darkness in our lives, and Sophia and I notice it most when there's the most love in this relationship. They really want to come in and try to take us down when we're deeply in love. And if any of you know us from our podcast or our weekly oracle offerings, the dream world is huge for us. What we become aware of, the guidance we get, the work that we can do in the dream world, stuff like that. And we've both been given a number of dreams about the darkness around us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, specifically that the darkness doesn't like our light increasing, and so they will really try to interfere with that at that point.
So this story is one that I've known that I was going to put on this podcast eventually. I didn't know that I was going to do it as this next episode, but the reason I'm doing it is because medical medium Anthony William just came out with his first spiritual book called Angels, Demons, and Spiritual Tools, and it is
Woohoo!
all about derms. And so the energy is here, the momentum is here, people are talking about it, the time is now. So that's why we're going into this story here and now. So, with that said, this is not going to be a book review. Sophia and I have only done one full listen through. We are studying parts of
Mm-hmm.
it ourselves. There's a bunch of tools in there we're putting to use. So, any questions you have, any curiosity you have, if you want to learn more, that's your source. Go there. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
So with that said, in that book, there's 16 different things you can do to protect yourself from DERMs. And I'm just going to highlight the first one. The first one is using your free will, because everybody has free will to do this, and that's what it takes to do this, to become aware of DERMs in their lives, or the
Mm-hmm.
darkness in their lives, or the demons in their lives. That's a free will choice, and it's a privilege. It's a privilege to have this information because, like I said at the beginning, this stuff is happening, it's affecting you, and it's very
Mm-hmm.
intricate and detailed in how it works. It's very, very fascinating to learn this from Anthony. And so this podcast is part of just bringing awareness to this. And trust me, I'd rather not. I'd rather not. I was just a kid who wants to snowboard. And then I became a young adult who just wanted to snowboard and talk about the angels and the light and the manifestation and all the good
Yes.
stuff. And I thought demons were for people in the movies and exorcism. And, by the way, they make all that shit super scary. But it doesn't have to be. The darkness is powerless, and it becomes far more powerless when you're aware of it. So,
Yeah.
this stuff has been happening in our lives, and we never really had a good source to go to talk to about this, to figure out what's going on. So we're so, so thankful for this book. But like I said, even though I don't want to be talking about this, it's been a part of our lives. And so this is not the story, but it's a story that is supporting everything we're saying so far in the intro. Sophia and I were graduating from the Barbara Brennan School of Healing after 4 years, and graduation was being held in California. So we were preparing to go to California to graduate, and the darkness came in
Mm-hmm.
super strong. They were
Yeah.
they were coming in from all angles. They brought sickness,
Hospital
they
stays.
brought
Yeah.
emotional trauma, and probably at the time the scariest thing that happened to us. And again, I'm not going to go into fear here. I'm going to circle right out of the fear, so bear with me. But at the time, the scariest thing that happened to us was they flung a picture off the wall right in front of us. Remember that, Sophia?
Yeah, we have a picture in our bedroom where we drew two halves of a heart, and one says Sophia and one says Brandon, and so when you put them together, they make a heart. And they flung one of those pictures off of the wall right in front of me, and I was like, "Oh my goodness," like I know I saw that, like and we were really thankful for our Episcopal priest friend who was actually a classmate, and she had a very similar story where this happened to her. And so she experienced it and handled it in a really positive way and was able to illustrate that for us, that she just laughed and said, like, is that all you got? So that really brought a lightheartedness to us and helped us handle that in the moment.
That really brought a lightheartedness to us. Like, I went from having like the hairs on my back raised to like, what the heck is going on around here, to
Yeah.
having a conversation with her and her being like, like, that's all I got. Ooh, you knocked a picture off the wall. Good job, buddy. Like, you really got me. And that just brought such a lightness as soon as she said that, and hearing
Yeah.
that from her, especially backed up with her own experiences. And that is exactly what the darkness is. It's it's weak. It's really weak.
Mm-hmm.
And it thrives off of fear, but it can't do much other than try to elicit fear. And so if you can just shift
Mm-hmm.
your perspective, like, oh, good job, buddy, pictures off the wall, it's something like that, then you take their power away and you take yourself out of fear. And that's really, they don't have much to work with. And so when you're aware of them, then you really take away the little that they are working with already. So, you know, with that said, we're about ready to jump into my story here, but I do want to take one quote from Medical Medium's book, where when he talks about experiences with DERMs, he says for some, it feels like in a dream state. And a lot of
Mm.
my encounters with DERMs, I recognize them all day long, but like the most like real ones, the ones that feel the realest and that I'm like so sure of is beyond my
Mm-hmm.
imagination. It comes with feeling and more sensation. It's in my dreams. And same with you, right, Sophia?
Oh, totally. Yeah, my tailbone vibrating and being scared for my life. Yeah, it's so real.
And, you know, I find it interesting that it says it feels like it's in a dream state because the dream state and consciousness and our experience of the waking world, it's not as separate as we've
Right.
tend to believe, I'll say.
Right. The nighttime
Yeah.
journeys.
I've been reading in the medical medium communities so many mind blowing stories from people who are using the tools offered in the medical medium book, and they're mind blowing. So, if anybody here is listening and wants to
Yeah.
get your story out, please hit us up. We'd love to host you on our podcast and get these stories out there,
Mm-hmm.
bring more awareness to the derms. But,
Yep.
you know, we do this with light and love and with a prayer of gratitude and protection to the angels because it's that's really what we're about. We're not trying to become the Durham people, but it was
Not at
there's
all.
always yin and yang, you know, the lightness and the darkness. It all goes
Yes.
together. So
Yeah. Okay, well I think we explained everything pretty well. Do you want to jump into your story?
yeah, all right, story time. You guys know where to turn now for more answers. So my story again, 2022. It's year 3 of the Barbara Brennan School of Healing. Let me just say a little bit about that. You learn hands-on energy healing, but that's like a small aspect of it. Uh, Probably the biggest thing you go through in those 4 years is you look at your own patterns and traumas and you focus on
Mm-hmm.
healing yourself. I guess you could say psychologically or energetically, or you really go into your own wounding. You keep the focus
Yeah,
on
emotional
yourself.
wounding.
It's a
Yeah.
big part of the school. And so you do something called supervision. And I know we have a number of graduates and students who listen to this podcast. And I will say that every teacher does supervision differently. So I'm going to explain
Mm-hmm.
how we did supervision with our particular teacher in year 3, and it may be totally different than how you did it. But supervision for us is the idea is you bring one of your practice sessions with your clients that was hard for you, you bring that forward, and the whole class is watching you. You have 30 minutes and it's you presenting and you pretty much just name the session. So I had the session with this client and we worked on this and it was challenging for me because, and then boom, you go into your own energetic patterns, psychological patterns about what's going, like tracking your own energy. What's going on with me while I was having this difficult time with a client?
And the teachers will lead you into that too. They'll ask you, how did you feel about that? Or, they kind of lead you through the process.
Yeah, and that whole part is like the first 5 minutes, and then you drop the client. Like you're not talking about that session anymore.
Mm-hmm.
You're not talking about your practice client anymore. You are now talking about you and what's going on with you. And so, to set the stage here, we're on Zoom. This is all being done remotely. Our teacher's on Zoom. The energy work, it works long distance. And the teachers are very skilled at perceiving energetically and working energetically. And so, my teacher, she was tracking me into my liver. She was finding anger in there and she was kind of like bringing it up, and I get to
Mm-hmm.
participate in this. She asked me some questions to go deeper. I forget exactly what I said, but uh, she's like, "Okay, so I'm hearing no from you." And I'm like, "Wait, I don't want to say no. Like, I know this work's valuable. I want to do this." I'm like, "Yes, let's go." And so she provokes my anger, and now I'm starting to feel it. And so I got this whole class watching me. It's like my presentation, and it's super vulnerable to go into your anger. And she's like, "Let that anger
Yeah.
out. What does that anger want to say?" So I start like yelling and cursing and just like expressing this anger with an audience, and it's vulnerable. I'm going to keep saying that word. It's super vulnerable. And
Mm-hmm.
and it was intense. It got super intense. And at the end of it, there's supposed to be time for your classmates to reflect back to you, like positive support, so you can kind of bring
Mm-hmm.
this all full circle and heal for yourself. But mine was so intense, it took the whole half hour, and then it was lunch break. So it pretty much just like I'm in my trauma, and then like time's up, and we stop, and then like everybody's off Zoom, and like the call's over, and now I'm just in my house with Sophia. I'm like, what the heck just happened? Like, I was just
Mm-hmm.
deep in a part of myself that I don't share with many people,
Mm-hmm.
just the ones who are fortunate enough to be close to me or unfortunate enough to be close to me. Uh, you know, and so my teacher knew that, I actually called her. I was like, I was in such a weird place. I called her and was like, what's this
It's like
about? And I'm like
abandonment.
asking questions,
Yeah.
and she realized I needed support. So she starts telling all the classmates to like hit me up, send the reflections. So I got some texts and emails, but it still put me in a funk. And I was in this weird place.
Mm-hmm.
We still had school for the rest of the day. And then I went to sleep. I barely slept that night. I'm like tossing and turning. And then the next day, we have school all day long again. So the length of schooling is an important point, I think, because there's nowhere for me to run. It's not like I could avoid it in any way. I don't drink, but just to make an example, like I couldn't go like buy a 6 pack and get drunk, or I couldn't like hop on my motorcycle and go for a ride, or go for like a hike, something to take my mind off it, some sort of distraction. I didn't have time to do that. We were in school or 12-hour days,
Mm-hmm.
and then we were sleeping. So the second night, okay, so that's the whole how this all started. I'm just in this weird place. It's really uncomfortable. So the second night, I'm sleeping and I have this dream. Okay. And in this dream, I'm up in an attic and two guys show up and they are on some serious drugs. And I immediately recognize them to be aspects of myself in one way or another related to me. But it started with them being in an adjacent room in the attic. So we look for symbolism in our dreams. Attic is like a space of consciousness. It's up at the top of the house. And if you do listen to the medical medium book, there's a very, very important component about all this with the brain. So it's fitting that we'd be in the attic. And then rooms are like different pockets of awareness or conscious awareness. And so I'm in a different room. And then there's these two guys in the adjacent room. And they're talking about how they're on these drugs. And and then I became aware as they're talking about that, like, oh, these are, so like I said, aspects of myself, and that what's going on here came about when I was on drugs when I was younger. So like years ago. Okay, if that makes sense. It's hard sometimes to describe the dream worlds and how awarenesses can come in and stuff like that. But this is how it went. So I'm aware that these are like aspects of myself that were created or picked up. Picked up is probably a better word, when I was on drugs, which was many years before this all happened. And so these guys are talking about how they were seeing the devil and listening to the devil. And then all of a sudden, I go, oh, I know this story, and I know this story well. And I went into their room and I told them, and this is the important point, okay? This is a big one. So I'm going to say it slowly, maybe say it twice. I told them, I know this story well. The path to freedom is to not listen to the devil at all costs, and that the closer that they are to freedom, the more uncomfortable they will feel. Keep going.
Mm.
Okay, so
Wow.
let's just
Yeah.
talk about that point for a minute, Sophia.
I feel like you should repeat that.
Okay, so the path to freedom is to not listen to the devil at all costs. The closer you are to freedom, the more uncomfortable you will feel. Keep going.
I just think that's so powerful, that those phrases. So yeah, like I want to write them on a whiteboard or something like that, on the mirror or somewhere to remind myself. Those are some powerful words there.
Yeah. So then I became aware that these two aspects of me, it's kind of what I was calling them, aspects of me, were demons. And I was calling them demons in the dream. So you guys are demons. And one of them walked over toward me. And let me pause again. The word demons
Mm,
was
yeah.
not part of my vocabulary. So when I woke up in the
And
morning,
I'm,
this was like a
yeah.
huge point for me. I was like,
Mm-hmm.
holy crap. I do not use the word demons. I don't. It
Yep.
doesn't come out of my mouth. I use other words
Yeah.
for different things or what I thought was different things. Turns out it's not so different, but that word only came to me in the dream state. So that
Yeah. I remember you saying that.
wasn't born of my own consciousness. So one of these demons walks over to me, and I'm now at a loft on a bed that swings away from the loft. And I jump on the bed to swing, and I'm swinging, and one of the demons, he tries to jump onto the bed with me, but he times it incorrectly. And first he drops a water bottle and like tries to save the water bottle, but he falls off the edge of the loft, and it was a really, really long way down. And I watched him fall all the way down, and then he died. He died at the bottom. I knew
Yeah.
it in the dream, and in the dream it was weird. I was in such like a happy, really high vibrational space. I was in a lot of joy, and to see him die down there, I like had this thought like, oh, like now I got to deal with that. Like I'm in all this joy right now, and I got to deal with that. Uh, but as soon as I had that thought, I start feeling this like we say kinesthetic felt sense, like uh, basically a physical sense. That's good enough to just say a
Mm-hmm.
physical sense. In the dream, I start feeling this physical vibration, and it's so intense. And then the dream ends, and I open my eyes, and I'm awake in my bed, and I feel this vibration, and it's only on the right side of my body, and it's like an energy conglomerate, is what I've always called it. I feel this whole energy conglomerate on the right side from like foot to head lift up and out. It just moved up and out of my body and left. And I was like,
Awesome.
oh my God, I just healed the devil in me. I just healed a demon in me. I felt it leave my body. And all this awareness came in that I picked up these demons when I was much younger. And uh, due to the process work, it's a common term, the process work
Mm.
that I was doing in supervision and staying with that uncomfortable feeling. Because as I said to them in the dream, that was an important point. Because I did that, it caused the demon to leave my body and maybe even be dead. So, I mean, to me, that's like mind blowing. Like,
Yeah.
I cannot
Totally.
believe I just experienced that. And like, it was mind blowing because it wasn't just a dream. I was
Yeah.
wide awake in bed, feeling the strongest vibrations. Like, I can't replicate that if I try, if I want to. Like, I was
Mm-hmm.
feeling it while I'm awake, and I felt it go up and out and leave. Um, so,
Yeah, that's just
yeah,
incredible. I think it felt seen, and it was time because it was being seen so vulnerably, it seems like, by all the classmates, and just it couldn't hide anymore, it seemed like.
exactly. And so that's something Anthony talks about in his book is that demons hate to be seen. And so this is just a
Mhm.
theory I have since reading the book, which was only, or listening to the book, which was only a week or two ago, that that uncomfortable energy that I was in for that day and a half wasn't me, it was the demon. And if I was to do something
Mm,
to distract myself, like I was talking about, then he would have been like, oh, good, like I can hide again. But I stayed
yeah.
with it. I'm like, what is this? What is this? What is this? What's going on here? I feel it.
I remember you were super uncomfortable. You were like squirmy, like you were just like squirming out of your body, like you couldn't sit still. You were just like all kinds of stressed out. second guessing yourself, keep asking me, like, how did your supervision go? Do you think that you did anything wrong? And
I
like,
remember all of
you,
that. I don't remember squirming in my body, but
you
I
were squirmy.
so I really felt
Yeah.
like that energy, that uncomfortable energy, was the demon, and he was seen by the whole class and the teacher and Sophia
Mhm.
and me.
Mhm.
And he was tired of being seen. He's like, I got to get out of here. So he left.
Yeah.
And that's my
Yep.
theory as to what happened. And Anthony talks about addictions and the demons behind them. And I'm going to take one quote from his book. He says, people who suffer from addiction issues can be taunted by demons even long after an addiction has been healed, conquered, or defeated. The person who defeated that addiction, who won over that addiction and moved forward, still can be taunted every now and then, still can be teased every now and then. And like I said, like those heavy drugs that I was doing back in the day was back in the day. And I've probably been carrying this demon around ever since. So, there's some questions here. Did he leave? Did he die? Is there another one? Because there was two in the dream. If there was, I have other similar stories that happened after. And so, like I said, Sophia and I are doing all the work with all the tools from the book, and now we battle DERMs as a hobby. And I think a lot of you
Well,
listening to this do too.
yes, definitely. I think it's cool though for you to have that confirmation, like in listening to Anthony's book, and then having this experience before you even knew about it, and just so powerful. And I think it's probably comforting to you to have that source of information from him.
Yeah, I mean, it was the dream itself was comforting because I was free from this, and like immediately the next day,
Mm-hmm.
all that uncomfortableness that Sophia was describing in me, that was gone. The next day,
Mm-hmm.
I was liberated, and I left like a voice message sharing this with the whole class, and just like felt like night and day. Felt totally better. So that's my story, and and that's it. So again, let's move into our soulful send off here, and my intention in telling this is to show you how I used process work to clear a demon that felt like it was inside of me. And let me back up and
Mm-hmm.
say that I know a lot of you listening who have read the book or listened to the book are saying, "Wait, aren't the angels on the right side and the demons are on the left side?" And yeah, that is what he says in the book. I'm telling my story exactly how it was. I don't know why it just felt like it was on the right side of my body. My one theory is that I know for a fact my nervous system is like it's got a left right split and it's way weaker on the right side. So, for all I know, this demon came out of my entire body, but because of the way my nerves need healing on the right side, I could feel it much better. That's my only
Mm-hmm.
theory as far as that goes. But okay, so back to my soulful send off. And what I want to say here is
Mm-hmm.
that, I'm just here to empower you to know
Yeah.
that you can release this source of trauma in your life and you can recognize it and you can free yourself from it. And it all starts with awareness. And that's what sharing this story
Mm-hmm.
is about, just bringing some more awareness to it.
Yeah. And I think taking out the scary is great, because our society does put a lot of fear around this topic. And empowerment, again, yeah, I feel like the more we're aware of, the more we can change with our free will choices. And so I feel like I'm happy to have this information from Anthony, and we'd love to hear more stories because the more we can hear people's experiences, and especially if you freed yourself from it, that's just so empowering, and really brings the light into the world, knowing that we're not held down, by these forces, that we can be set free.
Yeah, I feel empowered from the stories that I've been reading. And again, invite you guys to tell them on here to reach a wider audience and keep spreading the word. The success stories you guys having used the tools, it's so motivating, and it's keeping us on track and focused. And this is what we're doing every night before bed now, and it's important to us. So
Yes.
thanks for being here. Thanks for listening to our story, and we'll be
Yes.
back again with another Aspen Roots episode. Stay tuned.
Thank you so much. Till next time. Bye.
Aspen Roots.
Visit us at aspenroots.love.